Straight all day.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, it is good news for anyone who hasn't yet found their purpose in life. Now, I'll go into explaining this in one moment, but before I do that, first of all, let me tell you, I have a motivational text message that I send out on a regular basis, whether it is daily or weekly. It could be either one as of this recording, but it may end up becoming weekly. It might stay daily. Either way, you want to get this message because it's guaranteed every time I send it out, whenever that is, to keep you focused, sharp, and on point. So if that sounds like what you want to be, then you need to be getting this message. It's a text message that is straight to your phone, free of charge. All you need to do is text me to let me know that you want it by sending me a message to the following number, 305-384-6894. Send a message to that number right now, and every day or week or however often I send out that motivational message, you will be a recipient because you are on my list. Now, getting into this topic, I hear from people often who tell me that their biggest challenge, and sometimes people's biggest challenge, actually, let me back up. There are two biggest challenges that I hear from people all the time. Whenever someone reaches out to me, they usually just come out and tell me the challenge. That's why they reached out. And when people join my text community, I usually ask them, what's the biggest challenge you're working on right now? They answer. And the two answers that I get most often when people reach out to me is either they're looking for some quantitative change, meaning they need to do more, harder, better, faster at something like hard work, discipline, focus, mindset, which is usually not actually what they need anyway. They think that's what they need, but that's not really what they need. But usually it'll be that, or it'll be, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do, period. I'm just trying to figure out my life. I want to figure out my purpose. I want to figure out my direction. I want to figure out, what do I want to do with this opportunity that I have here called life. And it is not limited to, some people might think this is limited to somebody who might be, let's say, under the age of 25, but it's actually not. I hear this from people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. And I have good news for all of you who is in this position, that you haven't yet figured out what your purpose in life is. I'm going to tell you what that news is here today. But before I even get into that, let me tell you that I do have a few episodes of my show where I have talked about purpose and figuring out what yours is. Episode number 1754, I told you about mastering the paradox of success, and it is a shortcut for purpose and focus. Episode number 1094, finding your purpose in life, clear enough. Episode number 944, purpose, the most important element of your work. Episode number 677, how to stick to your purpose amidst life's possible distractions. Episode number 469, no deadlines allowed on reaching your purpose. And episode number 7, finding your purpose in life. So those of you who are trying to figure out what your purpose is, please refer yourself to those episodes, which all can be found at workonyourgamepodcast.com. Again, workonyourgamepodcast.com. Since the podcast feeds usually only list maybe the last 500 episodes, we have over 2,300 episodes here of this show. So anything I mentioned is not within the last 500. You need to go to workonyourgamepodcast.com to make sure you have access to those. So let's get into what the good news is. As I told you, I had some. Point number 1. Topic, once again, is good news for anyone who hasn't yet found their purpose. There is no time limit on finding your purpose. There's no time limit on it. So if you look around and you see people your age, or maybe your significant other, maybe your kids, maybe your parents, maybe the people in your neighborhood, or everywhere you look, it seems to you that you're seeing a whole bunch of people who have all figured out their purpose, figured out what they're doing, figured out what they're about, figured out where they're going, and you're the only eyeball standing alone who has not yet figured out what their purpose is. Understand that there is no time limit on figuring out your purpose. Now, the reason that you're still alive here on this planet, you listener today, is because there is some purpose that a higher being has for you that you have not yet completed. That's why you're still here. Now, once your purpose is complete, then they will take you out of here. You'll be done. All right, but as long as you're still here, that means there's still something left for you to accomplish. There's something left for you to do. There's some place left for you to make an impact. All right, you can take my word on that one. There are many stories of people over the age of 30, 40, 65 who found their purpose and their path at a later age than maybe what they thought they would. Maybe an age that's later than maybe the people around you deemed to be acceptable, but they found it. So if you're older than maybe some of your peers who have figured out what they want to do with life, but you haven't yet, doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. Doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong, even though you may have come here today thinking that. There's no time limit on this. So let me give you some examples. Harlan Sanders, when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken, he was 62 years of age. And Kentucky Fried Chicken is a pretty famous and successful business. I think we would all agree. Vera Wang, the fashion designer. She did not enter the fashion industry until she was 40 years of age. Toni Morrison, the first African-American woman to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. You notice she won that award at age 62. She'd been writing for a while before she hit that. Ray Kroc, the guy who bought the McDonald's franchise from the McDonald brothers and turned it into the company that we all know today as McDonald's. He did that at age 52. You know what Ray Kroc was doing before he bought the McDonald's franchise from the McDonald brothers and turned it into the phenomenon that it is now? You know what he did for a living? He sold milkshake machines. That's what Ray Kroc was doing before he bought the McDonald's franchise and turned it into what it is now. Martha Stewart, everybody knows her. She published her first book at age 41, and she launched the brand that made her famous. She became this, so Martha Stewart became the name that everybody knows to this day. She was 48 years of age when that happened. Robin Chase, the founder of Zipcar. Those are little cars that people can rent and drive around in certain towns. They have them down here in Miami. Robin Chase was past the age of 40 when she started the company. Robert Greene, my favorite author. He was nearly 40 years of age when he published his first book called The 48 Laws of Power. That was the book that made him famous and took his career where it is now. He's almost probably might be past 60 years of age now, but that book came out in 1999, 48 Laws of Power. Robert Greene had worked like 40 different jobs and was down there 40 years old, and he's even said himself that he felt like his parents thought he was probably going to be a loser his whole life because he hadn't really found his thing at that point, and then he wrote the 48 Laws of Power, and the rest became history. Samuel L. Jackson, the actor, he was 46 years of age and in recovery from cocaine and heroin addiction when he appeared in the movie Pulp Fiction, the movie that pretty much made him famous. 46 years of age. Sam Walton. Some of you may not know that name, but you know the name of his store. It's called Walmart. Sam Walton he opened the first true Walmart store because he had tried some other things, some nickel and dime stores and things. The first true Walmart was opened when Sam Walton was 44 years of age. So I'm giving you these examples so that you understand there are many people who became wildly successful in life and they didn't find their thing, whatever that main thing was going to be, didn't find it until they were at ages that most people would consider to be advanced, and at an age when many people pretty much say, well, hey, I guess this is pretty much what my life's going to be, and I'm not going to try to do anything else or push myself to go any further or go any harder. These people figured it out because they understood what I'm telling you here, that there's no time limit on this stuff. As long as you're alive, there's something left for you to achieve. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is good news for anyone who has yet to find their purpose. Understand that you have many more options than your parents and teachers have for finding your purpose if you're alive today. I'm recording this in late 2022. So moving forward, you're going to have even more options than you have today. Tomorrow's going to be more options. Next day going to be more options. Why? Because technology and all the things that are being created these days, it's happening faster and faster, which means people like ourselves just have more opportunity to express ourselves and more opportunity to monetize that expression than people had 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago. So you have a lot of opportunity these days, and tomorrow you're going to have even more. This is true regardless of your age. As long as you're alive, you have these opportunities. Your parents, and let's say your school teachers growing up, the adults around you when you were a kid, they are older than you. Therefore, they had less access to the resources and information that you and I have access to today, at least at the age that you are now. All right, so if you're in my age group, I'm 40 years of age. If you're in my age group, you know that your parents could not launch a business from their couch with no money the way that you and I can launch a business from our couch with no money. All right. Back in the days, or back in the 90s or the 80s, if you wanted to start a business, you had to have cash, you had to have connections, you had to have a network, you probably had to have some type of physical location, and on top of all that, then you had to figure out how you actually going to get anybody to come and buy something from you. And all your customers, you either had to physically reach out to them via mail, snail mail, not email, because there was no email, or you had to have a nice little following in your local area, because those are the only people who could buy from you. Now look at the businesses that we launch these days. Look at the kind of businesses that we have now. A person like myself, I have customers. We have customers all over the world, all different countries, and people in different states and different areas. I could reach somebody across the country right now within 5 seconds, and it doesn't cost me anything. It's completely free, quote unquote free. Listen to episode 1690 where I tell you what the actual trade-off is when you deal with, let's say, social media. But the point is, it's much easier to launch a business now. You can go on a website like Shopify and launch a business, and it costs you virtually nothing. You get a free trial, right? They give you a free 7-day or 30-day trial, whatever it's going to be. You can put your products up there, let people know you have products on your Instagram, which also costs you virtually nothing, and you could be profitable. You could be in the black, making money within 30 minutes of launching your business today. Any of you who was around in the 90s and the 80s, you know how crazy it would seem to have somebody say that to you 20 or 30 years ago. You can launch a business right now, within 30 minutes, you're profitable. You're making money. I'm talking about an official business where you have documentation, you got a bank account, you got a EIN, you are actually legitimately recognized by the state and the country as a business entity, and you are making money, and you didn't have to put hardly any money up to get started. That's what it is these days. You have so much more opportunity, and all these people that I mentioned, they did this stuff back before all this opportunity was available. So if they can do it with as much as they had to do to make something actually happen, you don't have to do nearly as much. You can absolutely make something happen. Your parents weren't able to connect with people across the world or even across town without actually meeting that person in person in order to make something happen. Your teachers cannot create a product from scratch with no money whatsoever and start making money from it with zero financial investment the way you and I could. When I launched my first product that I created, it cost me nothing. I was using a free hosting platform. I created the program with like a PDF creator like Microsoft Word or something like that on my computer. I marketed it, told the world about it through a YouTube video. None of those things cost money. Free hosting platform. The product was a PDF that I created on my computer, and I marketed it through putting up videos on YouTube. None of those things cost me any out-of-pocket expenses, and I was profitable within one day. Made my first sale $4.99. Your parents could not have done that in 1987. That was impossible. Actually, all the things that I mentioned, website, hosting, YouTube, PDF, none of those phrases even existed. They wouldn't even know what you're talking about if you said that to them back then. Excuse me. The options available to us today are infinitely more than what they were in previous generations. So, if you haven't yet found your purpose, understand it's much easier to do, and it can be done much faster than it could have been done a generation or two ago. Now, let me offer a word of warning/disclaimer to you on this very point. Because what I'm about to share with you is one of the main things that keeps people from creating success, even though creating success is much easier to do these days. Now, you have much more access to the tools for creation of success than we had back in the day. Here's the challenge. Because it is so easy, many people take it for granted, and therefore they delay and they do nothing. All right, this is a version of, I believe it's Parkinson's Law, which is every task will expand or contract given the amount of time available for it. So if I give you an hour to get something done, it'll take you an hour. But if I give you 30 minutes, you'll get it done in 30 minutes. This is just the natural human nature. Humans are by nature lazy. So if you give people 2 hours, they'll take the whole 2 hours. Give them 20 minutes, they'll take 20 minutes. So you need to create a sense of urgency within yourself for creating that success for yourself. Even though I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with you because you haven't gotten it as quickly as other people. It doesn't mean you should just take your time and get to it whenever you get to it, because eventually your time is going to be up, whether you get it done or not. Okay, so this is where the complacency comes in with human beings. It's the same thing when it comes to information, knowledge, and curing our own ignorance. Because you could pick up your device and you can access information literally at your fingertips at any given time, most people take it for granted that they have access to that information and never actually go get the information, because they're like, well, I can always go get it. I could always get to it, but they never actually get to it. Therefore, they never actually get the information, even though it's been at their fingertips the entire time. It's the same thing like if somebody has a gym in their building where they live or in their apartment complex. Well, there's a gym right downstairs. I could always get to it when I get to it. And because they always have this thought of I could get to it and I know it's available, they never actually do it. And then they're out of shape and going to the doctor and having to pay for pills and operations and stuff because they never actually took advantage of the thing that was available to them. So just because it's easily available does not guarantee that you're going to take advantage of it. This is why I added this disclaimer. You got to have a sense of urgency about taking advantage of the thing that's available to you, not just knowing that it's available to you. Everybody get me? Good. Point number three, Today's topic, once again, is good news for anyone who hasn't yet found their purpose. Number 3, you do not have to fit into the archetype of what anyone else has done, because you can create your own. That's the great thing about the world that we're in now. You don't have to fit into what somebody else did. Now, again, 20, 30 years ago, you did have to fit into what somebody else had done because those are only things available to you. But now with the internet and this wide, vast space that we have for free creation and expression, you can be anything that you want to be. You can create a brand new thing, and if you can get people to catch on to it, then hey, so be it. Now, I just told you in a recent episode, don't try to create a brand new market. The thing is, with the way that we can express ourselves through media and through the social platforms these days, you can put stuff out there at no cost and just float a trial balloon out there. Let me try this thing and put it as a TikTok video for 30 seconds. And if it catches on, then hey, you just created a brand new thing. And if it doesn't catch on, you can just make another video tomorrow. You can make another video in an hour. Nobody will even know. Just delete the old one or leave it up there. It won't even matter. This is how you can experiment with different stuff without a big investment of time or a big investment of money. So that's kind of a disclaimer to the whole episode that I talked about yesterday. It was more on the business side of things. When you're running a business, don't put everything into trying to create a brand new market. But you all understand what I'm saying here. You can create your own lane and the things that you're doing these days. So let's talk about this some more. To go along with the previous point, the many more options and avenues that we have for doing what we want to do and doing it how we want to do it, it allows us to create our own boxes. So you don't have to fit into somebody else's box. You create your own box. You create your own archetype in your own industry, in your own career, and it doesn't have to fit into anything that currently exists. You can be exactly who you want to be, do things exactly how you want to do them, even if nobody quite understands what you are doing or how you are doing it. I remember when I first started putting videos on YouTube, which was in 2005, it wasn't really anything to it then because there wasn't any money to be made. But let's say between the years about 2008 through 2010, this is when I really started building the brand that became Dre All Day, that became Work on Your Game, I started making my own products. I was making money from making YouTube videos, and I was playing basketball professionally. I wrote my first book in this time period as well. So this was a big time period for me, that 2008 through 2010 time period. I remember talking to people who are like my parents' generation, and they would be like, what exactly is it that you do? They couldn't quite get it because it wasn't a thing yet. Nowadays it's a thing. All right, you can just say I'm an influencer or I'm an online marketer or things like that. But during that time period, it was kind of a new thing that people didn't quite understand, and it didn't fit into a box that people could fit into their minds, at least people who weren't from our era, people who didn't grow up in this era and they weren't all on the internet every day, people like me and maybe people like you. But it didn't matter. It didn't have to fit into what they could understand because it was a brand new thing. Nowadays, everybody understands it, but 10 years ago, people didn't get it. People didn't quite get it, and that was completely fine. And these days, people are creating stuff that me and you don't understand, but it's a thing, and if they can make money from it and they're legitimately doing it, then hey, it's our job to catch up to them. They don't have to catch up to us. We got to catch up to them. That's how it is. As long as you can find some people who do get it and do go along with it, and you can make a living from it, or at least make a couple of dollars from it, you have an opportunity on your hands. That's how it is. 20 years ago, this was not the case. Even 20 years ago, this was not the case. But today, it is the case. So if you have not yet found your purpose, you have many reasons to look at the life you live today. The world you're in today is a golden opportunity, not a black mark on your resume to make you believe that there's something wrong with you or something wrong with your process because you haven't quite, quote unquote, figured it out. But at the same time, I'm giving you a lifeline here and telling you that there's nothing wrong with you, but at the same time, I am also telling you, listen, stop BSing and get a sense of urgency about figuring things out, because you don't have unlimited time. Even though you haven't used up all your time doesn't go on forever. Get active in figuring out what it's going to be, because at some point, your time's going to be up just like everybody else's, whether you figure it out or not. All right, you got me? All right, so I'm giving you, make sure you got the whole message, not just the part that's convenient for you. Let's recap today's class, which is good news for anyone who hasn't yet found their purpose in life. Number one, there is no time limit on finding your purpose. There are people who have figured things out in their lives after the ages of 30, 40, even past the age of 60, and then they figure things out. And even though many other people might have thought, well, they're taking too long to kind of get to something. So if you're older than other people who have figured things out, there are plenty of examples, and I've already stated them. Harlan Sanders, Toni Morrison, Ray Kroc, Martha Stewart, Robin Chase, Robert Greene, plenty of Sam Walton, Samuel L. Jackson. Many people have done this. Point number two, you have many more options than your parents and teachers had. This regardless of your age, simply because the world that we're in now, especially with just the internet in general, we have so much more access to other people, access to information, and technology moves much faster than it has ever moved in history, which means you can do a lot of things a lot faster. You can test things out a lot easier, and you can start things with much, much less investment that has ever been required to get started in anything, and even make money from it with no out-of-pocket expenses up front. That is an unprecedented way of living that, again, any of you who's under 30, you may not even think this is a thing, but any of you who's over the age of like 40, you know that how crazy it would be to think about this in the 90s. Point number three, you don't have to fit into any archetypes. You can create your own. To go along with the previous point, the many more options and avenues we have for doing what we want to do allows us to create our own boxes, our own individual archetypes, our own industries, our own careers. And listen, your parents don't have to quite understand it. Eventually they will, because it's going to become a thing if you can make it into a thing. Just like me, when I first started putting things on the internet and I'm selling products online, I'm YouTubing, none of those were a thing even 10 years ago. Now, technology moves so fast that 5 years from now is going to be like 10 years before. And then like 6 months is going to be like 10 years. That's how fast things are moving these days. And so today you have plenty of opportunity. So if you have not yet found your purpose, you have a golden opportunity. This is not a black mark on your resume. While at the same time, make sure you get this part too. You do need to get active and get urgent about figuring things out in your life, because you don't have forever. You got time, but you don't have forever. Those are two different things. Text me now to get my daily motivation or weekly motivation. However often I'm going to be sending it by the time you hear this episode. My number is 305-384-6894. And go to workonyourgame.net. Get access to my free training. Those of you who are six-figure business professionals, you're at the six-figure level, you want to get to the seven-figure level, and you know that your current process is not going to be enough to get you there. You know you're going to need some other pieces. I'm going to tell you the 5 steps to get from here to there. That is at workonyourgame.net. Work on your game. Dre all day.